what the hell? That's what I thought. How can it be that we are doing this? It's so insane. And so then I started to think about belief systems, you know, because you could say that each camp had its own belief system. The one in the West was derived, it had a very lengthy history, derived from the Greeks and the Romans and the Jews and the Christians, and from various schools of philosophy, and from the Enlightenment and all of that. And then the Soviet Union was basically predicated on a rational philosophy that opposed the axioms that the West had evolved, and each group organized their societies around that. And you know, I took political science for quite a long time, and the political scientists and the economists, they basically thought that people competed over resources, but that wasn't a very good answer as far as I was concerned, because it wasn't obvious to me why people valued the resources they valued. The economists just assume that there's resources that you value, but you know, people can value a lot of different things. It's not exactly fixed. I mean, you tend to value food very highly if you're hungry, obviously, but you know, there's lots of things that we value and that we want that seem somewhat arbitrary, somewhat like a decision. So I got more interested in why people valued things, and what it meant to value something, and then what it meant to believe something, and then how it could be that someone could believe something so deeply that they would risk their own death to protect it, or at least risk the death of other people, and maybe on a massive scale. Like, man, people are committed to their system. Now, you know, a system of belief is not just a system of belief. That's one of the things that I came to understand, is that it's not appropriate to make this too psychological. People defend their belief systems, but that's not exactly right. You know, we have a shared belief system. Well, it's sufficiently shared so that here we are, we don't know each other, we're a bunch of primates, we're in this room and it's peaceful and no one's scared, and that's pretty amazing, and that means that we're all acting out our roles. So we're acting out our roles, and we have an expectation with regards to those roles, and those two things match, and that's the important thing, and we'll talk about that a lot. It isn't the belief system or the integrity of the belief system even, it's the match between the belief system and the actions of the other people within the belief system. What you want to maintain is that match. You want to act out your beliefs in the world, and you want what you want to happen. That's a good thing, you get what you want and you validate your belief system. Great, perfect, security. But a lot of that is, if we're interacting, even right now, there's a whole set of expectations that are governing what we're doing. Like, you don't want me to take your little tablet there and smash it. That would be shocking, right? You wouldn't know what the hell to do, right? You'd be somewhere different if I did that, and you wouldn't know where you were. And that's another thing to know, because that's a fundamental difference. There's a fundamental difference between knowing where you are and not knowing where you are. I think it's, in some sense, the fundamental difference. You can think about it as the distinction between explored and unexplored territory, but you have to. I don't know if you've ever taken a cat to a new house. Cats hate that. And because in their old house, and maybe in their old neighborhood, they've slunk around, you know, at the edges, checking everything out. They start out afraid. They check everything out. They know where to hide. They know where to. They know what's safe, and they know that because they go somewhere and nothing happens, and so then they assume that it's safe, and they slowly build up a neighborhood that they're comfortable with. My dad used to take the dog for a walk, and then the cat got lonesome, and so it started to follow him. And first of all, it would just go along the buildings, the houses on their route, you know, hiding really from predators. And after a while, I got kind of comfortable with that, and then it would follow right behind the dog. But it had a border, and if my dad took the dog over one street too many for the cat would just sit on the corner and you know, cry like a cat cries. It was like, that's it for me, man. I'm not going any farther out into the unknown. And so the distinction between the territory that you have mastered and the territory that you haven't mastered is a fundamental distinction. It's the distinction between home and the strange land. And the thing about familiar territory for people is that most of the familiar territory that we inhabit is other people, because we're so social. So you can't really think, it's a weird way of thinking about territory. It's not exactly geographical objective territory, it's territory with a dominance hierarchy in it. And the dominance hierarchy has a predictable structure, and you know where you fit in it most of the time, and so that when you act out in that territory surrounded by your people, then often you get what you want, and you're so thrilled about that because you just don't want someone acting erratically around you, like, and you know that. So you walk down Bloor and there's people there that should really be institutionalized, but we deinstitutionalized them all so they could be free, and free to be, you know, suffering and malfunctioning out on the street. That's what the freedom ended up being. But you know, you'll walk by someone like that who's muttering away to the voices in his head, and you know, maybe striking out against whatever it is that's plaguing him, and you won't make eye contact. You might even go across the street. You're certainly going to give him a wide berth. You're going to keep a distance between him and you, and you're going to hope that you don't attract his attention, because he's not in the dominance hierarchy and you don't know what the hell he might do. And that's unexplored territory too. That's another way of thinking about it. Like, we inhabit time and space, not just space and not just time. We inhabit time and space, and our territories are spatio-temporal. We're here now, and this is safe now, and it's safe partly because of the physical structure and it's working, but it's also safe because none of you are manifesting peculiar behavior. But if you started to manifest peculiar behavior, if you stood up and started muttering or yelling or maybe attacking someone next to you, all the rest of you would freeze first, because then all of a sudden this would be unexplored territory. The match between what you want, which is a peaceful lecture that you hope has some content, the match between what you want and what's happening has vanished. And so then you don't know where you are. And so then what do you do when you don't know where you are? What do you do when you don't know what to do? Well, if you're a computer, you just crash. But you know, what good is that to you? You're just going to die? That isn't helpful.